Well, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to After Prison Show. And first thing that I want to say is, I've had this shirt for like 5 years. I can't even imagine how many videos I've probably worn this shirt in. It's probably been a lot, but that's got nothing to do with what I want to share with you guys today. Folks, today I want to bring you guys a bit of a prelude and a bit of something to look forward to. What is the thing? A hype video is exactly what I was thinking of. That's exactly what this video is going to be right here, a hype video. And what I'm getting ready to hype is something that is upcoming. And in fact, if you see this video, it's probably going to be the very next video. It should be. The very next video you're going to see is what I'm hyping up. And what that is this podcast that I am doing with Banky. Banky and I are doing a podcast. Got no idea what we're calling this thing just yet. The Banky and Joe Show, Time Served, Money in the Bank. I don't honestly know, but we're definitely doing a podcast, and it's a prison-related podcast, a podcast related to people who have served time. And we have just filmed the very first installment of that podcast, and it's my hope to be able to do this either once a week or twice a month. Something along them lines is what it's going to be. And we've got that first episode, and I don't think that we could have set the bar any higher than what we did with the first guest that we get the opportunity to bring to all of you. And who that first guest is somebody who I've spoken about here before on After Prison Show, somebody whose co-defendant I was locked up with, somebody whose story is one of the craziest. This person's story may just be the craziest story. A young man by the name of Travion Blunt. Now, maybe that name sounds familiar to some of you. Maybe you know who Travion Blunt is. You remember me speaking about this person in the past on After Prison Show. But regardless, whether you know who this guy is or you don't, I'm about to tell you. And folks, brace yourselves for the craziness. Travion Blunt is a guy who is 30 years old, who first got incarcerated here in the state of Virginia at the age of 15 years old. At 15 years old, this kid would end up getting sentenced to 6 life sentences plus 100 and some odd change years. 6 life sentences plus 100 plus years in prison at 15 years old. And what he did to get that type of time, you would think he must have went on like a murder spree. Well, when you hear this, it's absolutely crazy. He didn't do anything like that. He didn't kill nobody. This kid had a robbery charge and would end up getting, smoked by the system here in the state of Virginia. Sentenced under new law, wasn't going to be eligible for parole at all. 6 life sentences. And after 15 years in prison, he would actually get another chance at freedom and at life. And folks, we are bringing you on the first Banky and Joe Show podcast, untitled, whatever it is. By the time you guys see the podcast, it's going to have a name. And maybe by the time that you guys see this video, it probably already has a name. I'm filming this days in advance. That's usually how I like to do things. But, we could not have came with a stronger first guest to be bringing to all of you. I never knew Travion Blunt prior to doing this podcast episode with him and having him as a guest on this. But this is somebody that Banky knows very well, and that's why we were actually able to get Travion Blunt to be on the podcast, because Banky knows this guy. He knew him when he was a kid in prison at a level 5 prison that he went to at 17 years old. Banky and Travion did a lot of time together. Banky is like an older brother to Travion. And when you hear his story, you are going to be floored. You're going to be engaged, I guess is the best way to put it, because it's very interesting. Now, like I had mentioned, I've never met Travion prior to us doing the podcast together, but I knew of his story, and I would find out about his story while I was in prison myself. And like I said, I was locked up with one of Travion's co-defendants who ended up getting like 10 years or 13 years. I can't remember how much time this guy in particular got. But the reason why he got 10 or 13 years is because he snitched on Travion. Trey is his nickname, as a matter of fact. And what a crazy situation that was. To not only read about Trey's story, But to realize a guy that I was in prison with was part of who helped lead to him getting convicted and sentenced to 6 life sentences plus 100 years. You know, I'll never forget that guy. I was at 2 different prisons with this co-defendant. And, you know, I want to share the story with you real quick because I think it's interesting. I know I've shared it before, but I want to bring you guys up to speed and have this fresh in your mind because of what you're getting ready to hear about with Trey. You know, back in like 2013, 2014, somewhere around that time, maybe 2012, I was at Haynesville Correctional Institute in Virginia, a level 2 prison, and I was there with this gang member dude. I had done some tattoo work on this dude. I did a back piece on him. Cannot remember, you know, what this back piece was at all. It would be a week later that I would be getting shook down because somebody had told on me, and the unit manager, a woman who didn't like me because she knew that I tattooed and I wasn't, you know, living by the rules imposed by the prison that prisoners should live by. You know, she's shaking me down. She's talking trash to me. Hey, I'm going to find the tattooing stuff. And then she calls this dude over, who I didn't realize was Trey's co-defendant at the time. She calls him over, asks him to take his shirt off. She's looking at the tattoo, talking trash, still saying, oh, that's a really nice tattoo. What does that say? What does that say? Saying this to me like I'm going to tell her what this tattoo says. She doesn't find the tattooing stuff. She calls me and dude up into her office. She's basically yelling or screaming at us. I can't remember. We would end up getting sent back into the housing unit with her telling me, you're going to bring me the tattooing stuff or you're going to isolation. And back then you couldn't tell me nothing. I didn't care. So I was ready to pack my stuff up and go to the hole. But as we were walking back into the housing unit, leaving from her office, this dude would say to me, gang member and all, hey man, just go ahead and give her the stuff. Just give it to her. You can get some more. I hope you get some more. I don't want to go to the hole. Damn, you a gang member. See, none of this was making sense to me at the time. Later on, it would definitely make sense to me, you know, what was going on. But being the fact that dude was a gang member, I was like, well, I don't want no problems with the gang. So I got the stuff. I gave her the tattooing supplies. And of course, as soon as I laid that stuff on her desk, she was like, I knew it. I knew you were tattooing. I knew it all along. And all I could think to myself was, you didn't know shit. I had to bring it to you for you to know what I was doing. You had the word of a snitch, an informant. So what does that add up to? I guess the truth in this particular case, because here I was sitting in her office giving her the tattooing supplies. I would give her that stuff and then she would punish the two of us, just like we were in elementary school or something, saying that I had to write an essay. Maybe he did as well, saying why tattooing was not safe to do in prison. And my soft ass, I would do that. So would he. So he was pretty soft too. But as she was imposing this verdict upon us to go write this essay, I'll never forget this gang member dude saying to her, hey, I want to get a transfer. And you know, we're getting in trouble. You're not supposed to be asking for a favor because that's what a transfer would be in this case, it seemed like. But he was asking nonetheless, hey, I want to get a transfer. Okay, where do you want to go? She said, probably kind of sarcastically. And he said, I want to go to Indian Creek. Now, when he said that, I was like, damn, you trying to go to Indian Creek for real though? Ain't nobody trying to go to Indian Creek. The reputation in prison was it was a horrible prison. Drug treatment, like nobody wanted to go there. You couldn't have coffee. They didn't have cable. You couldn't have candy because it had sugar in it and that was an addictive substance. These were the rumors that were being spread about Indian Creek. Why in the world would this dude be wanting to go there? Well, it would make sense to me later on because he was soft and also because it was one of 2 prisons that was in the local area where we were from. He could have said he wanted to go to St. Bride's. That would have been the better choice. When he said he wanted to go to Indian Creek, this chick looked at him like he was crazy. I was doing the same thing like, was that a crazy looking face right there? I hope it was. This unit manager, I wish I remembered her name. Gosh, she was horrible. I'd love to see her out here and just say, hey, you remember me? I mean, no ill will, but hey, it's Joe Guerrero, the guy that was tattooing that you kept getting told to by the informants that were getting extra hot dog trays. Yeah, that guy. I am doing actually swell, believe it or not. When he told her he wanted to go there, she looked at him perplexed, then looked at me just as stupid-faced. I was going to say dumbfounded, but I think stupid-faced sounds a lot more appropriate. She said to me, well, do you want to go to Indian Creek too? No, I don't want to go there. You can keep me right here. I'm loving it. I am loving it here at this prison. A couple of months later, I would end up in the hole because I was still tattooing and up to no good. And then they would come to my cell and say, Guerrero, pack your things. You're leaving tomorrow. Where am I going? I don't have a transfer in. They said Indian Creek, and I said, oh, snap. This is about to suck. I end up getting transferred to Indian Creek. Now, I don't get transferred with this dude, but lo and behold, when I get there, he sure as shit is there. And he's loving life, running around with all of his gang cohorts and, is it cohorts? Castorts? What's the word? Buddies? Something like that. He's running around with all of them, and there's a lot of gangs on Indian Creek, surprisingly. There's a lot of like wild shit. I think the lower the level you get to, the more chaos and, out of control shit there could potentially be because everybody has to live up to the expectation and exceed it. We're at a level 2 or a level 1. We got to go extra hard because this is prison, right? We'd probably all be in trouble at a level 4 or 5. But dude's living well, swell as a matter of fact. And it would be while there, I don't remember how long I had been there when this took place, but all of a sudden in the newspaper there would be a story that broke about a young man, Travion Blunt, who at 15 years old was sentenced to 6 life sentences plus 100 years. And what made the story even more interesting, or added to it for sure, was the fact that this guy who I had been at 2 different prisons with, a guy who I did some tattoo work on, a guy who was a gang member and was supposed to go hard, a guy who had told me, hey Joe, just give her the tattoo and supplies, I don't want to go to the hole, would be named full government first and last in this newspaper article as one of this young man's co-defendants and as somebody who snitched on him. There were many different times while in prison that I found myself disgusted with just things or people or situations, treatment, whatever it might have been. But this was one time for certain that I was exactly that, just absolutely disgusted because when the story broke, this dude didn't have to check in. This dude didn't get beat up or beat out of the gang. Nothing like that. This dude was safe. There was an excuse, I'm sure there was. Hey, we did what we had to do. He should have took the plea deal too. I don't know what the justification was, nor do I really care. The fact of the matter is they snitched. They got 10 years and 13 years. One got 10, one got 13. And the young kid, Travion, he got 6 life sentences plus 100 years. And we get the opportunity to hear his story. And I think that that's a super awesome thing. I don't know how else to really hype this. Over the course of 5 years that I've done videos and so many crazy stories that I've heard, this is definitely right there in the top 5, top 3, the craziest. It's got to be one of them for sure. Maybe I should do a video like that. The craziest stories I ever got the opportunity to feature on After Prison Show and do a reaction to all of those. I remember just last year, Travion, after this time that he served 15 years, he has only been home for less than a year. He hasn't even been home for a whole year. How is he doing? How is his mind state? What would your mind state be if at 15 years old you got sentenced to 6 life sentences, or in reality, 7 life sentences? What would your mind state be if at 15 years old you get sentenced to an amount of time that says that you were never coming home, you're going to die in prison, and you didn't even kill anybody? You guys are going to be so shocked to see this dude's mannerisms, see the way that this dude carries himself, to see what he's doing out here in life now. What do you think he is doing? Nothing? Being crazy? You're going to be surprised. This is, again, the first podcast, the first episode of this Banky and Joe Show podcast that we're bringing to you guys. Audio is fantastic. There is, a couple of things that I want to improve upon, but I think that we really knocked this out of the park. To get an opportunity to talk to this guy, that was a hell of an experience for me personally. And I'm honored to get a chance to share this with you. I'm honored to be able to do this with Banky, this podcast thing, and I know that this is going to be a really cool thing. There's going to be a lot more that you guys will be able to see with this young dude, Trey, as well. I definitely encourage you to go check out Banky's channel because he did a video already with Travion Blunt. So definitely go check that out, and definitely tune in to this podcast. Where this podcast is going to be available, it's going to be here on After Prison Show for this first episode The next episode is going to be on Banky's channel, and then after that, the podcast is going to be available elsewhere. I think iTunes and everywhere that a podcast is available. That's the game plan with this. I'm honored to get a chance to share this with you guys, and I know that this is going to be something you really enjoy. And this was just the hype video, because what is getting ready to follow is the story of Travion Blunt, and also the beginning of the Banky and Joe podcast, which I think you're definitely going to enjoy that as well. Have a great one. I'll look forward to hearing what you guys have to say, and stay tuned. The podcast, it's on the way. Tomorrow, I mean, not like right this second. You were 15 years old when you got arrested. You're going to trial, not even probably comprehending the fact that you're fighting for your life and your life is going to be snatched away from you. You know, who were these people in relation to you in your life? Were they friends of yours, like the
childhood friends?
Who would point the finger at you in the court?
Point the finger at me.
You know, what was that like, seeing these guys testify against you in court?
It hurt. You know, it hurt because of the simple fact that you taught me this. You know, you taught me this, and then you, on top of that, you taught me not to tell. But
they did that to you.
They did that to me. You know, that would hurt. You know.
Was there a sentencing guideline? Like, I guess, what was the plea deal that they came at you guys with? Do you remember that?
Basically, life. Like, I mean, 50 years is not no.
Oh, that's what it was,
you know,
something like 50 or something.
Yeah. So
the plea bargain was 50 years.
That's life.
Oh, that is life.
That's life itself. You know.